Eleanor stormed into her parents' home, her face pale and streaked with tears. The force of her arrival immediately caught the attention of her mother, Penelope Strickland, who rushed over in alarm. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Penelope asked, enveloping her daughter in a tight embrace. Eleanor collapsed against her mother, trembling uncontrollably as her sobs racked her body. Through gasping breaths, she managed to stutter, "Zachary, he's left me." Penelope gently stroked her daughter's hair, whispering soothing words that Eleanor could barely hear through her emotional haze. With shaking hands, Eleanor fumbled through her purse, retrieving a crumpled envelope and handing it to her father, Anthony Strickland. "He sent this to my office today," she choked out, her voice raw. Anthony took the envelope cautiously, his expression unreadable. After a brief silence, he asked, "And Benjamin, is he with Zachary?" Eleanor nodded weakly. "Yes. He dropped Kevin off here earlier. Said he needed to take Benjamin to run some errands." She wiped at her tear-streaked face, her voice faltering. "Then, I got this." Her throat tightened, and the next words barely escaped her lips. "Divorce papers. Delivered to my desk." Anthony sank into his chair, glancing from his distraught wife to his daughter, who clung to Penelope as if they were the last survivors of a shipwreck. Penelope murmured calming words as Anthony unfolded the papers and scanned them with a deepening frown. "No warning. No discussion," he muttered, his anger barely contained. He clenched the papers in his hand and fixed his gaze on Eleanor. "He's accusing you of infidelity." His voice was firm, his eyes piercing. "Is there any truth to that?" Eleanor's face crumpled in anguish. "No," she cried. "I've never been unfaithful to him. He's convinced I'm involved with someone from work, but it's not true. I love him." Her words dissolved into sobs, each one heavier than the last. Anthony exhaled slowly, his expression darkening. "This doesn't make sense," he said, his voice low. "Did he ever explain why he thinks you're cheating?" Frustration flashed across Eleanor's tear-streaked face. "I don't know. Maybe because I hugged a co-worker after we closed a big deal," she replied bitterly. After a moment, her voice softened. "There was one other thing. At a work event, I had too much to drink, and a colleague kissed me. I pulled away as soon as I realized what was happening. Nothing else happened, I swear." Anthony flipped through the papers, his eyes narrowing. "He's asking for joint custody of Benjamin," he said grimly, "but he's claiming full custody of Kevin. He wants Kevin's last name changed and his name removed from the birth certificate." He looked up, his expression filled with disbelief. "Do you have any idea why?" The air in the room grew heavy. Eleanor and Penelope exchanged horrified glances before Eleanor crumbled again, her sobs shaking her body. Anthony's voice cut through the chaos, steady and unyielding. "Eleanor, look at me." Hesitant, she lifted her tear-streaked face to meet his gaze. His eyes were sharp, and his voice was like steel. "He's claiming Kevin isn't his. There's a DNA test here that shows less than a 1% chance Zachary is the father. Is this true?" Eleanor let out a strangled cry and buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Penelope shot Anthony a fierce glare. "You're not helping," she snapped. Anthony didn't back down. "Did you know about this?" he demanded, his tone unwavering as he turned to Penelope. "Did Eleanor ever tell you?" Penelope hesitated, her expression calculating, before finally shaking her head. "No. This is as much a shock to me as it is to you. She's just as blindsided as we are." Anthony didn't seem convinced. His tone hardened. "Give me your phones. Both of you." Penelope stiffened. "Excuse me? If you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem," he said coldly. "Unlock them, or I'll file for divorce tomorrow." Fury sparked in Penelope's eyes. "You've never had a reason to doubt me, Anthony. You're not getting my phone, and we are not getting a divorce." His expression remained unreadable, his voice cold as stone. "I've turned a blind eye to too many lies, but this is the final straw," Anthony declared, his voice low but resolute. Watching another man raise my daughter's child has changed everything. Hand over your phones now, or this marriage is done." Penelope's composure shattered like glass. Her face twisted in fury as she exploded. "Go to hell, Anthony. I'll make sure you lose everything you have." Anthony remained unfazed, his expression unreadable. He calmly placed the divorce papers on the coffee table and rose to his feet. "Do whatever you feel you must," he replied quietly, before walking into the kitchen. Moments later, he returned with a plastic Ziploc bag, which he turned inside out and slipped over his hand like a glove. Without a word, he began collecting the used napkins that sat in front of Eleanor, sealing the bag carefully. Once he was done, Penelope's voice pierced the silence. "What on earth are you doing?" she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at the bag. Anthony's face remained impassive as he replied, "I'm reaching out to Zachary to find out where he had the DNA test done. He's discovered Kevin isn't his son, and now I need to confirm whether Eleanor is truly mine." Penelope's scream echoed through the room as she lunged at him, her hands clawing for his face in blind rage. Years of forgotten martial arts training kicked in as Anthony instinctively struck a calculated blow to her solar plexus. Not out of aggression, but just enough to make her stumble and catch her breath. She crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, her face a mix of shock and terror. Eleanor let out a panic-stricken scream as she rushed to her mother's side. Tears streamed down her face as she cried, "Dad, stop this!" Unmoved, Anthony turned on his heel and strode toward his office. He didn't wait for Penelope to recover. In minutes, he had packed his essentials, reset the Wi-Fi password, and walked out the door, leaving behind 30 years of marriage. Anthony's first stop was at McDonald's, where he used their free Wi-Fi to access his financial accounts. Methodically, he closed their shared credit cards and transferred half the funds from their joint bank account into his personal account under the pretense of a business transaction. It was clean, efficient, and final. Later that evening, Anthony arrived at Adam Davis's residence, greeted by Adam at the door with a knowing look. "This couldn't have gone any worse," Anthony muttered as he stepped inside. Adam let out a bitter laugh. "Calling this a disaster doesn't even begin to cover it," he replied, leading Anthony out to the back patio. Beyond them, the expansive golf course stretched out into the twilight. Adam offered him a glass of bourbon, and the two men settled into a long silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Anthony spoke up. "How's Zachary holding up?" Adam gave him a hard look. "Do you really need to ask?" he said. "He's losing his youngest son, and you're losing your grandson. Nobody walks away from something like this unscathed." Anthony sighed deeply, guilt evident on his face. "I can't even face Eleanor or Penelope." Penelope knew there was a chance Kevin wasn't Zachary's son, and kept it to herself. "And now I'm wondering if Eleanor is even mine." Adam's expression darkened. "Babe's furious," he said grimly. "I've never seen her like this. If Eleanor weren't Benjamin's mother, I think she would have already done something drastic." Anthony nodded solemnly. "Keep her calm. We don't need any more chaos." Before Adam could respond, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "Why is he here?" Babe stormed onto the patio, her icy glare fixed on Anthony. Her tone was frigid. Adam raised a placating hand. "Relax, sweetheart. Anthony's on Zachary's side." Before he could explain further, the doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood at the entrance, their faces unreadable. Anthony stepped forward to meet them, his expression resigned. "I was expecting this," he murmured, turning and extending his wrist as they moved to take him into custody. Adam called after him, frustration and concern in his voice. "I'll get in touch with Zachary. We'll sort this out." 6 months later, much of the chaos had subsided, but the emotional scars were still fresh. Eleanor had initially fought hard against a divorce, begging for marriage counseling. When that failed, her desperation turned to unreasonable demands. Eventually, a DNA test confirmed that she was indeed Anthony's biological daughter. Yet, the knowledge brought him little peace. Though he still cared for her, the respect he once had for her had disappeared, leaving their bond nearly non-existent. Anthony doubted it would ever be repaired. Eleanor refused to let him see Kevin, adding another layer of pain to the already strained situation. A key piece of evidence, a security photo from a pharmacy showing Anthony with scratches and claw marks on his face, helped clear him of a misdemeanor charge for allegedly assaulting Penelope. Meanwhile, Anthony found himself ensnared in a grueling divorce battle with Penelope, a woman he no longer trusted. She fought the proceedings every step of the way, using her legal team to delay the inevitable. The deadlock might have dragged on indefinitely if not for a shocking act of violence. One night, in a nightclub parking lot, Penelope and Eleanor were brutally attacked. Both women claimed they didn't know who their assailant was, but security footage revealed a masked individual, small in stature, dressed in black, and wielding a slender, weighted rod. The attacker struck with such force that the weapon visibly bent. The assault left both women with multiple fractures and several missing teeth, though they were fortunate enough to avoid permanent physical damage. From their hospital beds, Penelope and Eleanor speculated that Zachary might have orchestrated the attack, but given his imposing 6 feet 3 inches frame, he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. The case remained unsolved, leaving the women shaken and profoundly changed. Their vibrant social lives vanished, replaced by reclusive behavior. Most days were spent arguing with one another. As time passed, their resistance to the divorce proceedings faded. The custody battle over Benjamin was settled with a shared 50-50 arrangement, though Zachary was designated as the primary custodial parent. Neither side was awarded child or spousal support during the court process. Another bombshell came to light when a court-ordered DNA test revealed that Kevin's biological father was Andrew, a bear. Zachary's name was removed from Kevin's birth certificate, and Andrew was ordered to pay child support to Eleanor. The revelation devastated Andrew, leading his wife to file for divorce. He found himself financially crippled, with 3 children to support and spousal payments to his ex-wife, who had been a stay-at-home mom by his insistence. Andrew's financial collapse seemed inevitable. Zachary, however, found solace in the unwavering support of his parents, Adam and Babe. Despite Eleanor's betrayal, Zachary remained employed at Anthony's landscaping business, working diligently to help it grow. Under his care, Benjamin thrived, though his visits with Eleanor were often turbulent. Each time Benjamin stayed with his mother, he was caught in the whirlwind of her emotional instability. One moment filled with bitterness toward Zachary, the next with tears, mourning everything she had lost. Penelope, for her part, remained deeply resentful. Her animosity toward Anthony only grew as his charisma and newfound popularity among the single women at the country club became apparent. Through it all, Adam and Babe stood by their son and grandson without hesitation. Babe, undeterred by the family drama, continued to dominate the women's golf circuit. Even missing a few clubs from her bag, she claimed her 5th consecutive victory in the Women's Golf Championship. Her determination was unshakable, proving that neither scandal, betrayal, nor even family chaos could slow her down. And so, despite all the turmoil that had unfolded, life carried on. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care, dear viewer. See you soon.